at the Adelphi, Hull's best-known live music venue, to watch local band Fonda 500. Run by fanatical music fan and wearer of an unsuitable hat, Paul Jackson, the Adelphi, with its cheap entry and drink prices, ensures that generations of Hull music fans can appreciate the best new and established groups. Over the years, the venue has played host to stellar bands such as Oasis, Radiohead and Pulp, but you'd never know it to look at its unassuming exterior.
From outside, it really looks pretty much like a terraced house, doesn't it? It doesn't look like a club.
Yeah, well, it is pretty much a terraced house, I think. I think the only thing that sort of sets it apart slightly is that the Germans dropped a bomb on what is now the car park.
Yeah, it's very handy too. Yeah. Well done there, boys. My car is parked there at this very moment. A German car too. A little irony if I hear that. But how would local bands survive and thrive if it wasn't for the Adelphi? Is there anywhere else for them to go?
There's nowhere else that will put a new band on, you know, playing a debut gig, and there are no places that will allow a band to develop in the way that we do.
And do you find yourself in the position sometimes of actually giving advice on to bands on how to cope with
very much so, yeah. You know, I've done everything from sort of, as I say, presiding over debut gigs to sort of taking bands who are ready down to London and sorting them out.
You go as far as that?
And sorting them out with management and stuff, yeah. So, it's a full...
Oh, I didn't realise you went... Yeah, it is. And,
I'm not just...
No extra charge, I take?
No, I've never charged bands to play. It's never been a pay-to-play venue, and I don't charge anything for sort of other professional services.
Makes you sound like a genuinely good bloke, Paul.
No. Sure, I'm an arsehole.
But of course he's not an arsehole. In fact, he's probably done more to encourage new bands in Hull than anyone else. Bands like Mr. Ed, whose youngest members are only 16, and who are taking a break from their regular gigging schedule due to the pressure of GCSEs. I make a point of never going into my own children's bedrooms, so I was uneasy about venturing into the bedroom of Madman lead singer Johnny for a chat with him and drummer Danny.
So what's Hull like as a place to kind of be in a band, and is it easy to get gigs and so on?
It's fairly easy. I mean, there's obviously the Adelphi, which is, I mean, Paul will give anyone a chance, but I think
he's been pretty good to you, hasn't he, Paul?
Yeah, really good. I mean, I just rung up and asked him, and he'd never heard a tape, and he just gave us a chance. And
how long ago was this?
3 years ago, I think.
As long ago as that? Yeah, so you must have all been, like, before, you know, pre-puberty. Yeah, I mean, how old were you?
I think you were 13.
Not old enough to go into the venue.
No, not really, but...
so what was that like? That must be very strange, you know, because you could never have been in there before. Had you been in there before?
No.
It must have been a very strange work.
We loved it.
Did you feel pretty grown up?
Yeah.
What do your mum and dad say about it? I mean, do they worry about you getting into trouble in the record industry?
Very much, yeah. Yeah, they don't want us to sign anything or anything. They're very worried about the rock and roll lifestyle and everything that goes with it, and getting
misbehaving.
Yeah.
Being like a Gagarin.
Also, they don't want our dreams to be shattered by the record companies, bad deal.
But it's one of those things where it's like common sense would tell you, like the business of a record company is to make as much money out of you and to give as little of it back to you as possible, really. I mean, that may be seen like a cynical view, but I mean, they are business organisations, not charities. Mm-hmm. So you have to watch them like hawks, really. You have to be dead careful with them.
As a father myself, I feel quite protective of young bands about to sell their souls to the corporate fiends, but there is an alternative to signing to a major label, and that's starting one yourself, which is exactly what Porky and Steve from Pork Recordings did, turning a Georgian house in Hull town centre into an office, distribution centre and studio. From here they've created and marketed 55 releases that range, it says here, from funk jazzy breakbeats to new tripe, whatever that may be.
We never set up initially to be captains of industry. It was like, how do we carry on making a living out of the thing? We love music, and it's like just to be self-sufficient. So it was like, right, we don't advertise, we've got our own studio, we don't have to like do anything out, externally, as it were. It's like we can keep the costs right down, therefore we'll only have to sell X. Yeah. And we all get a wage out of it, and that X is like 1,000, 2,000 CDs or whatever, whereas the majors it's like 100,000, or they're not really interested. It is all about kind of units or whatever, and we just wanted to avoid that at all costs. We've never tried to ram our ideas down people's throats as well. It's not like we've got an agenda. Well, we have got an agenda, but it's not one that we're trying to... It's a musical agenda. Yeah, it is, yeah, and if you're going to hear it, it's in there between the notes, and so from our point of view, we never really wanted to really kind of push any one kind of attitude forward, but we do like to think of ourselves as cottage industries, that it's just a small thing that has came for a certain group of people globally.
Pork's prime cuts have been played and sold in countries as far apart as the United States, Japan, Russia and Kazakhstan. Don't write and tell me that Russia and Kazakhstan are next to each other, I know. But despite Pork's global reputation, their hearts will always be in Hull.
People are always surprised when they come from out of town because they expect something a lot bleaker. I don't know why. I think mostly because Hull rhymes with dull. It's not the name of the city. Kingston's the name of the city. I mean, Hull's the name of the river. Kingston upon Hull. It's Kingston on Thames, but everybody calls it it's Kingston.
Nobody calls it Thames.
So I'm saying let's call it Kingston, and the marketing men get the council if they only knew restyle the city. But I think that's possibly the quandary of the place now is that it's not actually making anything or producing anything in large numbers, that people are Sheffield and the Steel or whatever. People don't associate with anything anymore.
But one thing people do associate with Hull, or should I say Kingston, is the Humber Bridge, once the world's longest single-span suspension bridge, although now the Japanese and the Danes have a longer one each. This ripping feat of engineering links Kingston upon Hull with, well, nowhere very much, because the northeast coastal motorway that was due to link Newcastle with the south was never built. As a result, the tolls raised by the bridge have never been enough to cover the cost of building it, leaving a mounting debt of £359 million.
I think the council are planning to take this bridge down because of the expense and put in a ferry, which I think is a really good idea. That's my joke for the afternoon.
I've got to cross the bridge on my way to visit my old friend Robert Wyatt in Cleethorpes. I'm unenthusiastic about heights, so the thought of crossing it fills me with a nameless dread.
That frightened the daylights out of it.
It's my first visit to Robert Wyatt's summer house, which is one of a complex of bungalows known as the Humberston Fitties. The Fitties are on the southern bank of the Humber estuary, directly opposite Spurn Point.
Sheer momentum makes us act this way or that way.
It's fantastic. Old log cabin. Hello, I didn't do a very good job of knocking on the door. It's excellent. Am I allowed to do this? Lovely facility.
It's cold after.
Ever since his days in groundbreaking 70s band Soft Machine, Robert Wyatt has always made beautiful and unexpected music. Many of the lyrics for his most recent solo album, Sleep, were written by Robert and his wife Alfie at this house here in Cleethorpes.
Cleethorpes used to be, the reason I believe that they're enemies traditionally with Grimsby up the river was because this is where the wreckers used to operate. That is to say that goods carrying stuff up the Humber and towards Grimsby, the thing is that there were people here in the olden days, you know what they were like. And they used to lure ships. They had things like they had lights which they pretended were the lights of Grimsby. They would lure ships onto these sort of foul rocks here where they would get destroyed, and then they would go in and pull out all the goodies and smuggle them. And there was a sort of, in fact, one of the huts along here was a smuggler's drinking hut.
What was this one?
This actually was built in about early 30s and was built by actually a boat builder. That's why it's sort of
boat-shaped.
Well, boatish somehow.
Yeah.
What's nice about it is, I say, that they're sort of, they are built by people for themselves, so they're all very often quite sort of nutty.
It's hard to believe, but there are some people in Cleethorpes and beyond who would like to demolish the Fitties to make way for a far less beautiful, though no doubt more profitable, caravan site.
I mean, this one is under constant threat, which we've managed to fend off recently from a large caravan holiday company.
I noticed the caravans, sort of uniform green caravans marching right up to the boundaries.
Yeah, well, I mean, sometimes here we feel a bit like, Palestinians huddling in the West Bank, waiting to be moved out.
Well, the one thing that they always do, these people, when they're trying to move somebody aside, is the promise of more local jobs.
The front page sort of news and local headlines, it's new jobs. In fact, it's been calculated there'll be six new jobs.
Yes, as many as
from this.
What kind of wanker wants a world in which the caravans, neatly painted, rows and rows and rows of neatly painted caravans, should dominate something like this? Makes you puke, really.
I really like holiday resorts out of season, and the seafront of Cleethorpes has all the right ingredients. Empty amusement arcades, deserted chip shops, a windswept pier, and a faint smell of drains. In 1881, 250,000 people visited Cleethorpes. Today, I seem to be the only one here. But I'm quite happy pottering about and listening to the waves. And maybe it's the constant presence of the sea and the chocolate brown water of the great greasy Humber that has inspired the creation of so much mellow music here. Or not, probably.
Like a bloody Alfred Hitchcock film, eh? With me as Tippy Hedren.
Next Saturday, John's in Bradford. And don't forget that John Peel will be available to chat online on Monday lunchtime at www.channel4.com. A double CD containing tracks from the bands featured in Sounds of the Suburbs will be available from most record shops from March the 29th.